All right, welcome back to We'll Get You Home, a place to talk about all things real estate with Dave and Jackie of ReLocal Real Estate in Kennesaw, Georgia. Dave, Jackie, how are you doing today?
Oh, we're doing
How you doing?
I'm
wonderful. Yeah. How you doing? How are you?
Well, I thought it would be cool to talk about the entire home buying process today. Start to finish, what is your unique process, not so unique process, and everything in between. What does it take to buy a home? Someone we're interested, start from the beginning.
Wow. Start from the beginning.
Not of time, just of
Well,
what the contract
They make the decision they want to buy a house.
yeah, and that's an interesting what causes people to want to buy a house. I mean, it could be many different things. Okay, we're getting married, we're having a child and expanding,
Kids are going off to school.
and shrinking down.
Shrinking.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of reasons. But I'd kind of like to maybe steer this in the direction of a first-time buyer. Yeah, if that's okay.
Sure.
Because right now it seems like it's such a problem
Yeah.
for first-time buyers
Yes.
to buy a home. It's difficult. Let's talk about the couple we met with just the other day. Why is that funny? Because we were actually talking about this before we went on air. Was this the perfect? I actually think this is the perfect couple because as we were, talking to them, and we always meet with our clients before we ever go out if we can, and that's 90% of the time. We'll meet with them, get to know them, find out what their goals are, find out if they have any money,
Crush their hopes and dreams.
give them a little salt and pepper of reality, to flavor this thing a little bit. But we're in a particularly interesting home buying season, wouldn't you say?
It's hard. It's hard for younger people who haven't had a house with equity to sell to move into another one.
Yeah, I mean, and this young couple, newly married, thinking about starting a family. We have a young pastor and a school teacher, and they really want to own a home, especially they're in the process of saying, hey, we want to have kids, and so we don't want to be in an apartment. We'd like to have a home to raise our children in. And and we're in this environment now where a starter home starts in like mid 300s and low 400s in kind of Cobb County where we are. And a lot of times, if you're in Cobb County, that home is a train wreck.
I was going to say, and the 300s are the same size of the apartments, so they're not feeling like they're really upgrading much.
Correct. These are older homes built in the sometimes 60s, 70s, 80s, contemporaries, cedar siding, which are wonderful homes.
They're great, but they're not big.
Could be wonderful homes, but they're 1,500 square feet. A lot of times they're coming out of a 12, 13, 14, 1,500 square foot apartment. And so, it doesn't feel like it's much of an upgrade, like this pride of ownership that everyone needs to have, and they should. But it's difficult because now interest rates are 7.25% or higher. And, that starter home is $300,000 plus. And so then now that's a $2,400, $2,500 mortgage payment every month.
In addition to having maintenance, because when you're renting,
you don't have those things. So that's a situation where we had to kind of walk them through and give them a little dose of reality as to what it would cost, how much money they would need, in this environment where we're in, sellers typically are not paying the buyer's closing costs.
Not yet.
They don't have to. Maybe by next year. You never know. It depends on inventory, levels. But there's low inventory. And so houses that are fairly nice are still selling very quickly. Homes that are less nice, I used to call that barking at traffic. Doghouse, then it's going to stay on the market for a while. But homes that are fairly nice are selling quick.
Yeah.
And for the list price are sometimes slightly above still here in Atlanta. So
Which makes it important to have a realtor who's gonna run out there as soon as you see something that you like, because there is no time to waste still.
Right. Yeah, I can't impress upon, especially new, really any buyer right now, any buyer, doesn't matter if you're new or old or first house, fifth house, doesn't matter. So you got, if something hits the market, you've got to make time in your day, to get there and see it that day. If you want to have a chance, being able to get into the race. Even now, it's weird. I would have thought last year, at this time, we kind of crept up to around 6% interest rates, and now we're 7.25 to 7.5.
Mhm.
Year and a half ago, we were at 3. We're at 3% interest rates.
Difference a day makes.
Yeah, and so things have changed so drastically. So
I
anyway,
also noticed too that people aren't doing upgrades to their house before they put it on the market a lot. That
Correct.
they're just throwing them out there still as if it was last spring.
Mhm.
and our last spring, guys, for those of you, little aside, for those of you thinking about selling your home, we have to get it ready for sale now.
Yeah.
Even, so it'll sell quickly, because if you don't, it'll sit on the market.
Yeah.
It'll sell on the market. So, but let's get back to buyers.
Okay.
So what is our process when it comes to meeting with them? What do we want them to know, first of all, before they ever get out and look at a house?
That they probably don't really know what they want. They think they know what they want until they go out and look at it in person, and it's an emotional thing.
Yeah.
They realize that what's important and what's not important is not what they thought.
What do we call buyers? Buyers are liars. They don't mean to be. They just have this idea in their head of what they want to buy, and sometimes it works out that way. Most of the time, you say, okay, they want, a ranch house. They want something that's, all on one level.
Yeah.
They want it to be brick, and so you find homes that are all on one level that are brick.
And they buy a 3-story townhome.
That's they went into their friend's house, and it was a townhome, and then they come back and they're, that's what I wanted. This is nothing, but they said, and that just shows the emotion of it.
Mhm.
You don't really know what you want until you walk in it. And we call it the aha moment. When we're showing houses, we want the people to come in and go, ah, versus nah. So it's ah or nah.
It's probably the first 2 minutes whether or not you know that this is the house.
Really, sometimes when you pull right up in front,
Right.
and you pull up in the front yard, but so you want them to know that they probably don't know what they want.
Right.
So be
So,
open.
so yeah, exactly. Especially with limited inventory, you don't want to discount too many things because people have to nothing.
Well, an example, the couple we were talking to the other day, as adamant as they can be, these are two really nice people, people-pleasing people, which just made me fall in love with them. But we just don't want anything that has to be worked on. And I had to probe a little deeper. I was like, okay, so if it needs some paint and carpet, would you consider it? Well, yeah, I would consider that. Would you, if it's livable right out of the gate, if you walk in and you can live in it, would you consider, doing some work over time? Minimal work. We're not talking about tearing down walls and all that kind of stuff. It's a minimal work. And I said, and here's why. Because if you let someone else do all the work, then they get the profit from the work. If they don't do the work and you're able to buy it cheaper and you do the work, then you get the profit. So it's a good way to build some equity and to build some wealth if you're willing to do, put in the sweat equity, the hard work of gaining equity.
Mhm.
And they were like, oh, we would do that. So that's kind of that, we think we know what we want
Right.
until you, and I think the realtors probably our most important job, when you say, is to ask questions.
Mhm.
Yeah, just ask questions, to ask the questions that they don't know
Do you really
to
think so?
ask. I really do. Yeah, it's funny. My family teases me because I'm the question guy. I just keep asking questions, and it's irritating sometimes to them. That's why I do it. To me,
You
sometimes
like the irritation.
it's fun. But when you're talking to a buyer, asking questions like that. Would you actually consider doing some work if it was going to make you usually a lot of money?
Mhm.
You know, not a few $100, 1,000.
So just to be clear, that's not what you're talking about when you said sellers need to do work on their home. You meant more important things than just things like that that the buyer could do after the fact to get the equity.
Well, the people,
But
Go
no, when a seller makes something look fabulous,
yeah,
it's beneficial to them.
absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're just saying when you find one that for buyers that the sellers haven't done that, they need to consider doing these
Correct.
things before
Don't
just
just
writing it off. Okay. Just
That's right.
okay.
Yeah, walls don't, aren't my color.
Mhm.
You know, it has still Formica countertops.
Right.
You know,
You're not gonna get that emotional thing when you walk in.
Yeah.
really not. Yeah,
You gotta
but
see past the ugly to the vision.
correct.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah, try and give them a little bit of vision if you
Mhm.
can. And not everybody has that vision, and that's okay too. It's just they might miss out on a gem
Right.
because it's got a little dirt on the outside of the stone. You know, and so yeah, you like that? Yeah, I might keep that one in the repertoire. But it's true. You know, there's some dirty diamonds out there that we just need to kind of look past. Buy it, then you get to polish the diamond. Yeah. So
It's gonna look different anyway when you put your stuff in it.
so from a home process, once we've met with them, we immediately get them with our lender.
Okay.
So we want them to know exactly what they can afford, at least at today's interest rates, so that they have the information necessary to make a wise decision.
Mhm.
It's like if anybody's ever bought a car, if you step on the lot not knowing what you can afford, then there's a lot of angst. I really like that one. I don't know if I can afford it or not. You're looking at the window sticker and you're just thinking, ooh, if you go to the bank first and they pre-qualify you at the bank and they say, yes, you can qualify for this, we will make you the loan. I know that hardly ever happens anymore. It always happens at the dealership. But if you do have a bank and you go to the bank and they qualify you for a $30,000 car or a $40,000 car, which is kind of a starter car now, amazed at that still.
It's a different video.
It is different video. But then you can walk on and you can negotiate confidently, you know, with the car salesman. You know you can afford that car, and now he's got to sell you on it versus you trying to talk him into, you know, can I please have the car?
Right.
Same in and we want them to know we can afford this house. If we walk in and it matches the financial criteria, then we know if we write a contract on it, we'll be able to close. And there's something really powerful, you know, in that, I think. You know,
Having the confidence.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, it's
You can't get pushed around. It's much.
by the realtor, you know, or by going into a house. Let's say you've been qualified up to $350,000 or $400,000. You know, again, starter home. We're talking starters, you know, here, and your agent is showing you $450,000, $500,000 homes. Well, why would I be looking at these? And okay, I'll humor the agent. Don't do that. Just tell them that's not at our price point. But if they're doing that, then, or if you look at the $350,000 home and it's gorgeous and it comes back that there's 10 offers on it, which are still happening now, and the lowest price is 400,000, then you know you're not there. You okay, we'll move on to the next house, versus trying to get something that you can't get or that you might get, and it's going to, it's not bankrupt you, but it's going to socially bankrupt you. You're not going to be able to go to a ball game, out to dinner. You're going to be so house poor because you stretch to get that house that you can't do anything else. You can't go on vacation.
Right. I was going to ask about that.
Which causes so much stress personally, but then also relationally between you and your spouse. So we want them to get with the lender so they feel comfortable, you know, with what they can buy.
Knowledge is power in this case.
Yeah.
Okay. And sorry.
Well, So then what's next? You know, after we get them with the lender,
Buy the house.
well, then we put them on a search. I mean, and that's something that Jackie's brilliant at, is getting that whole, you know, search grid out there and getting to a point where they can start seeing homes online.
Mhm.
Right, get, every time they hit the market, if it meets the criteria, you'll get an email. And if you like it, let us know.
You know, they, people can look online and find any house that's on the market. In fact, they get hit with, when they start looking for homes, and they start getting hit with so many homes. Just like if you're looking for a car, then all of a sudden every car dealer in the world is popping up telling you they have that car. Same thing with houses. When Jackie puts our people into a search grid, you know, HomeSnap or whatever, you know, they might get 20 homes right out of the gate, because that's what's in the pipeline right now. That's what's on the multiple listing
You mean
service.
3.
Well, 3. Okay, it used to be 20, now it's 3. But then whenever one hits each week, one house a week, then they'll get that house each week immediately, you know, in their inbox. People have to be, as we talked about earlier, they have to be willing to go out and look that day. If it comes up, they have to do whatever's necessary. And by the way, if they can't, I did this the other day on a rental, you know, for the kids, old friend, we're old. So old friend, they couldn't see it, they were working. So, you know, I went out and looked, Jackie and I went out, we looked at it on the day they were having the open house for this rental. And didn't end up working out for them, but we'll do that for our clients. If they can't make it, we'll go out and sometimes even say, this is the perfect house, I'm writing a contract, let's see if we can get it accepted, then go see it.
I know we've gone there too, to houses that people can't get to because they're working, and just take pictures going, this is the situation here. I don't think you need to waste your time.
Yeah, we talk people out of a lot of houses.
Mhm.
Yeah, because there's something in it that we think that they shouldn't buy, that would keep them from selling at some point in the future. So, so then, you know, you're out looking at properties. When the aha moment happens, you know, then we have to talk through, you know, through the whole offer process, you know, with them. And the offer process is different based on the house.
And their financial situation.
Well, hopefully we're only looking at houses, you know, that they can afford, but if there's something where they're having to pay over list price.
Or whether they're gonna ask for closing costs, or
Right.
whether they've got a house, and we're talking about first time home buyers, but possibly if they have a house to sell, it's a contingency.
Yeah.
Whether we think it's going to appraise.
Well, and there's lots of ways to hold, you know, scan the whole closing cost issue. There's you know, when people buy a home, typically, unless there's a special situation, like there are 1% down programs out there for first-time buyers. There are 1% down programs for teachers, first responders, firefighters, police, you know, that kind of thing. VA, you can get 0% down, you know, if you're a veteran. So there are ways to buy houses with less than 3% down. A typical FHA loan is 3.5% down, but then you have to worry about closing costs. So, and closing costs are going to be 2 to 2.5% of the loan. So you're looking at about 6% on average, 3 to 3.5% for the down payment, and around 2.5%. So 5.5 to 6% total is what you need to buy a house. So that $300,000 home, you're going to need right at $18,000. Plus the bank wants to know that you can make your first payment. So they want to see at least one payment in the bank already that you haven't touched. You know, so, you know, we told our people the other day, you need 20 grand, you know, to buy in the $300,000 to $350,000 range. And they made a statement earlier in the process that said, you know, we have a goal of saving $15,000 by next June, which is when they want to, you know, buy. And we were able to say, okay, you know, beans and rice and beans, we need another 5,000. You know, how do we get there? And, you know, I love the response. They were just, okay, we know what our goal is. They'll get there. I have no doubt that they're going to get there. one way or another. So, and we'll just be there to help them through through the way. So once they're under contract, now what?
Well, you get schedule a home inspection because you want to know what you're buying.
What's your favorite term there? You're saying you get what you.
Oh, you get what you inspect, not what you expect.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you gotta get the inspection done during the due diligence. You put some earnest money down, usually about 1% of the sales price. During the crazy times, or if you're competing against other buyers, a little bit more would help, but no less than 1%. Once you get the earnest money in, the inspection done, we gotta negotiate against once we get the inspection results. You gotta send that contract over to the attorney, over to the lender.
And all those things have timeframes.
It all goes on binding agreement date. That's the date you keep your focus on. How many days from the binding agreement date do all these things happen? Get your appraisal in, your finances all underwritten and ready to close.
You know, we mentioned a bunch of terms there. Due diligence is one of them. Due diligence is what I call your get out of home free card. You know, we all know what a get out of jail free card is.
Other people call it 10-day free look.
Yeah. So the due diligence period back in the day, 30 plus years ago, when I started this business, we had an inspection clause. And you would put an inspection clause in it. It might be 7 days or 14 days or 12 days, whatever you can negotiate. That's all negotiable. And the inspection time, you would come in and you would inspect the house. Well, the only way you could get out of the contract was by listing a bunch of stuff that came from the inspection and saying, I want the seller to fix all of this stuff. That was your get out of jail free card. And you would always list something that was very onerous. I want you to replace the heating and air. I want you to, you know, have an engineering company come out and evaluate the foundation. And it wasn't little stuff. It wasn't this light socket and stuff. Although you'd put that on there too, just to irritate the people. So they forget those guys, we're not going to sell to them. That's how you could get out of the contract. And people would do that, and it was irritating. So the board of realtors in pretty much every state, they went to a due diligence period. You got this time to look, kind of more like a commercial contract. You've got this time to look, and during that time, you can get out for any reason. You can wake up and have a blemish on your cheek and say, that's a sign from God, we're not supposed to buy this house. You know, and for that reason, you don't have to have a reason to get out and get your earnest money back. So, you know, we try and negotiate enough time, you know, in the contract where we can get all of the inspections done. We're working on a deal right now in Blue Ridge where we did a 30-day due diligence period, so that we would have time to have, you know, a lot of different inspectors out, because this cabin's on the side of a hill, pretty steep hill. It's a big home, 8,400 square feet.
And by the way, we had to extend the due diligence.
And we did. We had to extend it for a week, you know, because we got up against it and hadn't gotten some pricing back on some stuff. And the seller was fine to do that. But there's different due diligence periods depending on how many inspections you have to get done. And the inspections, what are the different inspections that people sometimes get?
And the home inspection, which will usually take care of the systems and the plumbing and electrical. And then there's the termite inspection, because you want to know that they're termite free, because
We're in
Georgia is prone to termites for sure.
Yeah.
And septic, if there's a septic system, you want to make sure that you're not going to have problems once you start moving in.
And sometimes here a radon inspection. So, and you know, we live in Georgia. Georgia has Stone Mountain. Stone Mountain is a big piece of granite sticking out of the earth, and they say that Stone Mountain extends under pretty much all of Georgia. It's this big rock of granite, and granite emits radon gas. And so if you don't have proper ventilation in your home, it can accumulate, you know, in a crawl space or in a basement, and it can be dangerous. So, you know, depending on, you know, the setup of the crawl space or the basement, sometimes wise to have a radon inspection. So the due diligence period is when you do all those things.
Just want to know what you're buying.
Yeah, you get what you inspect. And so we're trying to make sure that our clients are protected through the inspection process. And that starts from, the date that everyone signs the contract. So
Binding agreement date.
binding agreement date, let's say 10 days, but then there's also a finance contingency.
Mhm.
And so
Unless you're
appraisal
buying cash.
contingency, unless you're buying cash or with cash. So sometimes that's a 14-day appraisal contingency. So we have 14 days, even if it goes beyond the 10 days, to make sure it appraises. So you've got a couple of different things in there to protect your client. So that's the next thing. Now, once you've gotten through those two processes, really finance and, the inspection period, the due diligence period. Well, now we're moving toward closing.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot
And then
one.
the lender's gonna be asking you for more stuff at that point.
I forgot one thing.
You did.
When we're sitting down with people, one of the things we make sure we tell them is don't buy anything.
Hmm.
No idea how many people, get all excited about buying their house, and even, okay, we got through the inspection period, we got through, the due diligence, we got through the finance and the appraisal, and hey, we're good to go, we're good to close. And then they go out to,
Furniture places.
some furniture
Yeah.
place, and they buy $10,000 worth of furniture on a credit card. They open up a new account.
Lender's gonna check.
The day before closing, sometimes the day of closing.
I remember I had this one client where we were under contract and we were at the house again looking for whatever reason, and I was like, whose Camaro is that?
Oh, no.
And they're like, I couldn't get a Camaro. I was like, you didn't. And they're like, oh, I could turn it. I'm like, not gonna work that way. So that was.
Did they lose the house?
They did. They ended up buying the following year, but it took them a year to overcome that.
Oh, no.
Well, the reason why is the lender is looking at what's called a debt to income ratio.
Mhm.
So every long-term debt you've got, like, even student loans, your if you have furniture payments, if you any consumer debt that you have, including a car, will go against your debt ratio.
Mhm.
So when someone goes out there and they've been qualified and they're good to go, and then they go out and run, and buy a car and they've got a $600 payment, well, now that throws those ratios out of whack. And then it has to go back through underwriting so they can make sure that, yes, the bank still wants to take a risk on you because we think you can still pay for it. Or they might come back like they did in Jackie's case with this deal and say, yeah, you can't afford it now.
You gotta remember that you might be putting down 3 to 10%, 20% on a house, but the bank is picking up the rest of that. So they're putting up 90, 100%.
90, 95, 97%.
Right, so they want to make sure that it's a good deal for them too.
Yeah, yeah. You're going to the bank hat in hand and saying, may I have some money, please, to buy this house? And they have to, and by the way, they make money by charging the interest in between. They want to make the loan,
Right.
but they have to have, and then maybe this is a future video, how does the mortgage industry work? And we can bring our lender in, Ron Barris, and maybe talk about that a lot. And he'll be a hoot. We'll make that happen. But his nickname is 72 and Sunny. So that's his personality. But maybe to talk about the mortgage industry and how that whole thing works. So, but then once we've gotten through all that stuff and they haven't bought a car, we move to closing.
Yeah, get your utilities set up, change your address at the post office. If you got school kids, make sure you've got them registered in the new schools.
And those are all checklists,
Right.
that we send out.
Do you do a final walkthrough?
Yes.
We do. We always require a walkthrough, even if they can't make it for some reason. We will do it for them. We did that recently for some clients up in Woodstock, where they just couldn't make it. They were coming from an Airbnb where they had been staying while they were going through the buying process, and when we could do the walkthrough, when it was available, it was a 10 o'clock closing. They were delivering kids to school. So we went and did the walkthrough for them, then met them at closing. So, but why do a walkthrough? I guess that's a good question real quickly. We do a walkthrough to make sure the house is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And sometimes we negotiate repairs, make sure that those repairs are done, or if they were supposed to leave some specific items that they didn't accidentally go on a truck and head out.
but probably the biggest reason is, we've had situations where there was a water leak the night before. So you want to show up and make sure that the house is in the same condition that it was when they got it under contract.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. All the things Jackie mentioned are very important, but they don't affect whether the house is there or not. A house hasn't been flooded, house hasn't burned down, because it's never happened to us, but there's situations where the house burned down overnight. So, and if you show up to closing, having not done the walkthrough, you own the ashes. And the insurance company has to then make repairs or rebuild the whole thing.
You don't want to be going to court on that one.
No, don't want to do that. So we show up to make sure that the hour before it is still there, it is still in good condition, and hope that nothing happens while we're at the closing table.
And then quickly walk me through closing. What does that look like?
That could be a whole video on its own, but I'm gonna give my advice.
Okay.
The lender creates a package that the attorney in Georgia basically gets signed on behalf of the lender. The attorney works for the lender. Unless there's an administrative, mistake. They spelled your name wrong in the paperwork. They got your social security number wrong in the paperwork. They got the address wrong in the paperwork. Those are the only things they're going to change. They're not going to change a V to an A. They're not, because they've had attorneys look at this forever. So I tell my people this: if you make your payments on time, there's not a thing in this paperwork that'll hurt you. If you don't make your payments on time, there's not a thing in this paperwork that will help you. We live in a state that's a non-judicial foreclosure state. If you don't make your payments, they can put it on, they can advertise it for 4 weeks, sell it on the courthouse steps the following Tuesday, the following month, first Tuesday of the following month, and there's not a thing you can do about it. So that's the biggest advice I have for people.
Yeah, but what you can expect at the table is to be signing a lot.
Yeah.
If you're the buyer, you've got a lot more to sign than the seller. You do need to bring some ID to make sure you are who you are. Otherwise, they will not allow you to sign.
Usually 2 forms of ID.
And I like it when you've got the seller and the buyer together in the room, and you can talk about the tips and tricks about the house and what to expect, and the neighbor next door, how crazy it is, and the dogs in the neighborhood, all that kind of good stuff. So
Well,
make it
exchange
a happy time. But
that's
basically,
becoming rare, isn't it?
yeah, it is.
It's becoming rarer for both to be at the table at the same time. And we're becoming, I think, a little bit more fractional society.
Yeah, and then later on, it's like, hey, what's the code to this? I'm like, oh, well, normally the seller would have told you that.
Right,
at the table.
So, but that's pretty much the whole process. Of course, if anybody has questions, they can get a hold of us. We'd love to walk them through it and help them. We love first-time buyers. We really listen. We love fifth-time buyers too.
Say we love them.
We do, but gosh, the education process with first-time buyers is really fun.
All right. Well, this has been very helpful, and I know it's going to be very helpful for all the people watching as well. And I look forward to next week when we can expand on some more things that we didn't get to in this video, because I know there's just a lot to talk about for the whole process. You could talk about it forever, it seems like. And so we'll continue to make more videos about it so that we keep people informed.
And we'll do our best. We'll get you home.